the American market offers no guarantees, but the American market offers all possibilities. It's not the market that is in free fall. It's a market that's stable right now.
Official media partner, the Italian Wine Podcast, is delighted to present a series of interviews and highlights from the 2023 Wine2wine Business Forum, featuring Italian wine producers and bringing together some of the most influential voices in the sector to discuss the hottest topics facing the industry today. Don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. or visit theitalianwinepodcast.com for more information.
Hi, and thank you for being here. My name is Mirella Menglide. I'm with the Italian Trade Commission in New York, an Italian government agency that handles the promotion of the Italian products into the US. I am with the food and wine sector. So today I will talk to you about the US market. I will try to lessen your fears for entering the US market. It's not that bad. We're starting with the local production of wine in the United States. California, Washington, Oregon, and New York, plus the state of Texas more recently, produce the most part of the domestic wine. California alone makes 80%. California makes a lot of Italian varieties, Sangiovese, Marsala, Chianti, and you would think that local wine or locally produced wine is cheaper, but it's not the case. Californian wines are always more expensive than the imported wines. And to be honest, a lot of California wines are very good. US wine imports. The present moment is one to be remembered after the boom during the pandemic when everybody drank no matter what. And especially women drank a lot. And last year in 2022, we reached the top in Italian wine imports. But then the imports started to drop. Not for lack of interest of the US in Italian wines. The US loves everything Italian, especially wines. But at the moment, the warehouses are still full of wines. So the importers are not looking to buy more product. By the end of the year, hopefully they will have emptied their warehouses and look for new products. There is also the non-alcohol factor that's sweeping the United States, but we'll talk about that later. In table wines, Italy has always been number one in quantity, and for a year at least or two, also in value. If we're to believe what the press says, Americans buy less wine, but at a higher price. And this is the phenomenon called the premiumization of the wines. As far as the vermouth is concerned, Italy has the number one, no contested. Sparkling wines. The Prosecco has been the darling of the United States and still is, due to its easy taste and affordable price. But the Prosecco never reached the luxury status or the price levels of the French champagne. However, it is still the go-to sparkling wine. This is a summary of the wine imports. You will all get the slides if you want to, so we can go on. These are a lot of figures, and this is the July stats. Meanwhile, I think we have even the September stats. As you see, there was a drop even in French wine, if that's any consolation. The table wines, like I said, France takes the first place. The vermouth nobody moves Italy from the first place. The sparkling wines, it's France because champagne. And this is what I was talking about before. During COVID, everybody drank. After COVID, millennials decreased the consumption. They decided not to drink during the week, to drink only during weekends. But when they buy a bottle of wine, they like to spend. They like to research. They like to find out about that wine, and they don't mind spending. The channel of e-commerce that was obviously booming during the pandemic is losing steam. I hear voices that say that the channels are down 50%, the e-commerce. Why? Stress about everything. High restaurant prices, and believe me, the prices are very high. And then Americans start cooking and drinking at home more than usual. The wine sales and wine consumption tend to slow down in this period due to new worries about health, about financial situation, and about the geopolitical situation that worries us all. America is involved in at least 2 wars that I know of, so that's a reason to worry. In 2022, the consumption was 1 billion gallons. That's a lot. And California represents 81% of the US sales. What happens is that wine is more expensive than other alcohol products. And Americans have started to buy a good bottle of wine, but for certain occasions. There is the so-called new frugality of the American consumer, who is very, very prudent, very cautious in spending, and has a growing attention to health. Here you have a picture of who drinks in the US. You'll see that it's pretty much divided equally, with young people drinking less and baby boomers drinking just about as much as they used to drink. And in terms of ethnicity, non-Hispanic white and black adults lead the consumption. There's also a drop in the imports of certain foods considered fattening, such as gelato. Gelato, the imports of Italian gelato dropped 35%, if not more. The much coveted Generation Z, they like to shop in stores, in wine stores. About 70% of them shop in stores once a week. But they are after experiences. They will drink alcohol when there is live music, when there is a show, when there is a party. This is what they want. And they go after cocktails that look good on social media, I mean. And social media is paramount. Whatever they see on social media, they buy. The tendencies show that young drinkers are not interested in traditional beverages. They always want something new, something exciting. And they will age at some point, so hopefully they will come back to traditional beverages. The no alcohol beverages is the latest phenomenon in the United States. The sales rose exponentially, a crazy race that not everyone understands, but it's also because people prioritize wellness and moderation in drinking. A curious statistic is that 5 states account for 30% of the total amount of no alcohol beverages. California, Colorado, Massachusetts, Michigan, and Ohio. The highest growth rates occurred in Michigan, almost 38%, and Ohio, almost 45%. Nobody understands why. We know that California and Colorado are obsessed with wellness and health, but we don't understand why Michigan and Ohio raise so much. And consumers are increasingly ordering non-alcoholic beverages in bars and restaurants. 1 in 7 consumers buys soft drinks, and this percentage rises to 25% of customers under the age of 35. So it's again the young people. The generational panorama post-COVID, like I said, it's almost equally divided, but Generation Z, according to some opinions, they stopped drinking because it was too much. There was too much social pressure to drink at events, and everything was focused on drinking. So they started to say no. Baby boomers are still the most solid part of the sector that will drink, will buy expensive wine, and will continue to drink. Consumption of organic wines. In America, the organic trend came about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. And to that extent that now it's not something special anymore. Everything is organic in America, from wines and food to slippers and knives and plastic boxes. Now organic is mainstream. It's everywhere, in the supermarkets, at the corner store, which is why an organic wine cannot have a higher price, or nobody will buy it just because it's organic. People don't buy products just because they're organic. In America, they all look at the price. If the price is too high, they move over to the product with a lower price. All wine importers in America have a number of organic wines, but they don't market them differently, and they don't expect to sell them at a higher price. So much so that there are no specialized US importers in organic wines. They all carry some organic wines, but they're just there. How Italy ranks, it ranks pretty good. In the 20 best-selling wine brands in America, there are 4 Italian brands: La Marca, Santa Margherita, Cavit, and Mionetto. Among the 100 best-selling sparkling wines, 22 Italians, among which a few La Marca, Ruffino, Mionetto, and then there are some wines with fantasy names like Danzante, Tiziano, and Valdo. They could be produced by anyone. The legislation is an achy subject. From the Prohibition times, the America was chained onto the 3-level distribution system, which means from the producer in Italy, the wine can only go, by law, can only go to the importer. From the importer, the wine can only go, by law, to the distributor. And from the distributor, the wine can only go, by law, to the retailer. Consumers can buy only from the retailer, from the wine shop, or in some states from the supermarket, or consume the wine at the restaurant. Wine importers must have an import permit that is released by the government agency in Washington. It's called Basic Importer Permit. Distributors must also have a distribution license for each state in which they operate. And the retailers must have a state license and must supply through distributors based in the state, who, as I said, can buy only from importers. There is also the issue of taxes in the United States. The imported wine pays a hefty U.S. customs duty. After the wine is released from customs, the wine gets the federal tax, which is valid for the 50 states. After the federal tax, each state taxes the wine according to their law. New York State has another level of taxation, which is New York City. So basically, in New York State, the wine gets taxed 3 times plus the customs duty. The label of an imported wine must be registered with the government. Only the importer can do that. The importer will send the label with his name on it to Washington. The label of imported wines must be created, designed in compliance with U.S. legal requirements and must contain certain words with writing of certain dimensions. You cannot make a label any way you like. And manufacturers must comply with a million other legislations. The Food and Drug Administration Bioterrorism Act, which is the FDA registration and prior notice, as well as some requirements of the Food Safety Modernization Act. If you have questions about that, we in the office are available to answer any questions. The Food Safety Modernization Act was created in 2016, entered fully into effect in 2020, which is, it comprises the FDA registration of production facilities that has been valid since 2003. Prior notice, each exporter must notify the United States Customs of shipping the wine, not less than 5 days in advance. Food safety plan, which is a plan that exists in all Italian companies. There is no specific form for that. It can be however you want to make it, but it needs to be translated in English and kept at the disposal of the FDA if they inspect the foreign facilities, and they do inspect the facilities in Italy. And then there's a figure of preventive controls qualified individual who can be the quality control expert, who can be a person who has worked for a very long time, for many years in the company and knows quality control, because he or she will have to certify the products before leaving for the United States. He will have to certify that the products are in conformity with the U.S. legislation. So it needs to be a person that knows both the wines of the company and the laws of the United States. One good thing, the wines are exempt from 2 other procedures. HARPC, which is the old HCCPC, something like that, and from nominating a foreign supplier of FSVP, foreign supplier verification program. That's something that goes for food. Sometimes there's so many that it's impossible to remember them. The registration and prior notice, the FDA registration mandates to the foreign companies to nominate an agent, a U.S. agent. The U.S. agent registers the Italian facility online. They renew the FDA registration, they modify it, they update it, they do what they need to do with the Italian registration. It's not necessary that the agent be a salesperson. It can be someone of trust for the Italian company, because it's all based on trust. Prior notice, preferably done by the shipper, by the broker, or by the customs broker, someone who knows how to do when the wine gets shipped, when it will arrive into the United States. It cannot be done less than 5 days before shipping. The food safety plan, producers should create a food safety team if they don't have it. And the team must be managed by people from the production department. They have to be competent employees. The company needs to develop a flow chart with every piece of information, such as ingredients, packaging, storage, and distribution of the products. The food safety plan is specific to each plant. It cannot be borrowed, it cannot be copied, and it should be organized in a way that takes into account systems, employees, and customers. The plan must be kept current, well organized, translated into English, and accessible for inspection by the FDA. The PCQI essentially is the presence in the company of a person responsible for the creation, implementation, and supervision of the food safety plan. Must be a qualified individual. This is the key word, qualified. And he will supervise the preparation and validation of the food safety plan, the preventive controls, the review of records, and the reanalysis of the food safety plan. The PCQI should supervise the food and wine safety team, and a person may be designated as a PCQI based on their qualifications and work experience. There are a few courses offered on the internet for the companies who do not have a PCQI. They're not mandatory, but if you feel you need to train the PCQI, it's a good idea, and they cost a little bit. Labeling, the mandatory information on the wine label, the brand name, the class of the wine, type and designation, the name of the producer, as well as the name and address of an importer and any bottler. The quantity of wine contained must be indicated in metric measurements. All wine labels must indicate alcohol content. The labels of Italian wines intended for the US market must contain the words made in Italy or product of Italy. These are mandatory information. Also mandatory on the label of any product containing alcohol is the government warning, and this must appear on the back label usually, even for liquor chocolates. Custom duties. The U.S. Customs applies duties from 0.5 and 22%, the wines of the alcohol containing products. There are 4 categories of wines that can be distinguished from the point of view of the U.S. Customs: natural and artificially treated sparkling wines, table wines for less than 14%, wines with alcohol content between 14 and 21%, which is Marsala, vermouth, and other wines, and wines with alcohol content between 21 and 24. The taxes, the highest taxes, are on the sparkling wines and on the dessert wines. Very, very high. Market strategies. Now, what it says here is the gist of it. But as a strategy, you should come to the United States. You should visit the stores. You should look at what they have on the shelves. You should figure out which label you can replace, because nobody will keep the same wines on the shelves forever. And it's not advisable to propose your wine as the best, the most beautiful. Americans don't believe in that. The new wines need to fulfill a void, an empty space, and you should look for that empty space, but that takes time and study. The relationship with an importer must be close, serious, timely, and based on trust and honesty. There's no other way. American importers are business-oriented and profit-minded. They're also punctual and very respectful of deadlines. If a shipment is expected on day X, and for whatever reasons the exporter is not able to deliver, she has a problem with the importer, and most likely with other importers, because the word goes around. It's a small world. The importer may be sympathetic to a producer's problems, but he's more attached to his profit margin and to keeping his consumers happy. It's all business, but it must be based on trust and a serious approach to working with the United States. For a business done the right way, the rewards are very, very satisfactory. The consolidations of companies. A lot of small importing companies have been absorbed by larger companies. Some of them, they're public companies. But this is because there was a point in the market when they couldn't float on their own and they needed help. So that's when they got bought. But this means reaching a U.S. importer much more difficult, because you have to go through the big company, through the big conglomerate. Non-traditional importers. This is a very interesting figure that becomes more and more common in the United States. They're the importers who have a permit to import wines, but they make an agreement with a producer. Let's believe that the producer already has a restaurant or two restaurants or a hotel that would like to import their wines, but they're not ready to import pallets and pallets. The producer speaks to the non-traditional importer, and the importer will bring the producer's wines into the United States and deliver them to the restaurant or to the hotel that wants this wine. This way, the producer controls the product, the distribution of the product, and the importer has no say in it, and he washes his hand after delivering the product. Of course, the non-traditional importers charge a fee. The last alternative would be for an Italian company to open a U.S. office, but that's costly and it doesn't give any guarantees. As a matter of fact, no one gives any guarantees in the United States. At the bottom of this slide, there is a link to an interview that our president, Zoppas, the president of the ITA, he interviewed Bill Terlato, who is one of the oldest, from the family of the oldest importers of Italian wine in the United States. He basically created the Italian wine market. And from this interview, just from the horse's mouth, you will find out what to do and what not to do. And it's a lot to be learned. The conclusion is that the American market offers no guarantees, but the American market offers all possibilities. It's not the market that is in free fall. It's a market that's stable right now. People don't buy also because they don't drink. Importers have the warehouses full. So everyone is sitting on what they have because they're worried about wars, they're worried about raising prices, they're worried about recession, they're worried about inflation, they're worried about health, and so on. To come in the American market, you have to make an investment, at least 2-3 years, and you have to understand that you need to spend money before making money. The importer will not do the work alone. The importer will ask you to contribute. You cannot expect to ship the wines to the importer and then the importer does everything to promote the wines. There's advertising, there are demonstrations, there are promotions, there's sampling, there's tasting. They cost money and time, and the importer is not willing to put it in himself. Then, before you come to the American market, you have to have a systematic project for 2-3 years with all expenses considered in detail. You need an export department. You need an export manager, English-speaking personnel everywhere. A large enough company organization to cover for the people who are away to sell wine or to trade shows or anywhere. You can't just have 3 people. And US is not a substitute for when the markets don't do well. You cannot come to the US just because you want or you need to sell. You have to come with a purpose. You have to come to stay. And also you must continue the business once initiated in the United States. You don't sell 10 pallets and then you go home. No, you continue the work. Maybe the work is harder than before. And when you come to the US, it's like a marriage. It's courtship, engagement, marriage forever. And from that point on, a lot of work. There's the only way. It's hard work, but I guarantee you it can be very rewarding. I thank you very much, and I wish you a good half day ahead or whatever the hours are. And thank you for listening.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.